Hi, I'm Ramsey Fitzsimmons. I am a PE teacher and a strength coach from South Sioux City, Nebraska. This is my video for our last assignment for current issues of education with Dr. Tihan. I wanted to start by talking about my experience with this class a little bit. I started taking this class as a part of a master's degree in physical education. We were required to take certain classes that were administration level classes. And this is one of them. One of the classes that I took for UNK was a activities director class, and this one was my second class. And both of those classes that were about being administration or about being a good administrator or leadership at an administrative level, while it's not my interest, because I really enjoy being in the classroom and I intend to stay there for the totality of my career, they've been eye-openers in a lot of different ways, and this class was no exception. I learned so much about what it means to be an administrator, how decisions are made from a legal perspective, from a policy perspective, and all the things that administration have to take into consideration when they have to make a decision or when they're interacting with different stakeholders around their school community. As a teacher, I can relate to a lot of it because on a smaller level, I implement a lot of what administrators do with different stakeholders or different decisions, but in a classroom setting. But even so, when you're in the classroom and you're a teacher, you don't see things always from the administrative perspective. You see it from a teaching perspective. And this class made me see the whole picture more, and it gave me a more administrative perspective to different things. And I kind of found myself even bringing some of the learning that we were doing in this class to different conversations with my fellow teachers, because I realized, oh, wait, no, I know the answer to why an administrator made that decision or why they decided to do what they did from a legal perspective or a procedural perspective. And I learned so much about our school policies, studying our policies, our board policies, and it was enlightening to, as a teacher, know where my administration is coming from. But it also gave me a better idea of where constructive criticism is needed and where I would fix things based on the learning of this class. And so what I really wanted to talk to you about is 3 separate topics that I really truly learned from this class. One of those topics is really that, unfortunately or fortunately, it kind of depends on how you look at this topic, education is inherently political in a lot of respects, but especially on the administrative level. And when it is political, we have to be goal-oriented and strategic in our prioritization of different items as administrators. We are the same way in the classroom as teachers. We have to prioritize certain things. You only have so much time in a day. And you are abiding as a classroom teacher by certain legal limits. You want to adhere to there's an IEP, for example, or a 504. But an administrator is also adhering to their legal limits. And those are really decided politically. Laws are decided by politics. And that guides how administration can act and behave in their daily work. It's really important for administration. We talked about the immediacy scale. It's really important for administration to decide. They have to be able to distinguish between urgent, high impact issues that are affecting their student population and their stakeholders versus political noise. And they have to be able to connect this to the issues at hand in their schools. For example, in our last assignment, I talked a lot about how South Sioux City suffers from chronic absenteeism. There are a lot of legal ramifications behind that, and that has to be taken into consideration when you're addressing chronic absenteeism at South Sioux City. The second thing is Just like teachers have to work on their communication with their students and their students' parents, administration really needs to work on their connections and leadership skills when it comes to different people, like their teachers, parents as well, and fellow administrators and the Board of Education and different stakeholders throughout the school community. They really need to have clear, consistent communication, and try to prevent as many misunderstandings as possible, because misunderstandings can result in escalation. And they have to, that their job essentially is to de-escalate conflict. They have to have a very clear tone, clearly communicate and follow through on policy, because if they don't, there's legal ramifications for that. And they also are building trust with a lot of different individuals, their staff, with, like I said, the Board of Education, and with all the people in their community. So when they misstep on communication, that really is not a great look for the school district. So they have to be very careful in how they communicate issues. As a teacher, you get frustrated and you say, why aren't they telling us this, or this? Now you have a better understanding, or I have a better understanding of why that is. And then the third thing I wanted to talk about is that decision-making as an administrator, just like decision-making as a teacher, has to be backed up by data. When I give out grades or when I'm communicating with a parent, I have to back up what I'm saying with data or examples. And administrators and school leadership have to do the same thing. Even though their political pressure is much greater than mine, they have to have whatever decision they make be grounded in policy and data. And also, they're taking their own core values into consideration. They have to advocate for their students within their district and state systems. And they have to apply those policies, legal and otherwise, to things like attendance or their school funding, compliance and equity. And so when they're dealing with these very legal political issues, if they're coming to the table without data and background, there's huge legal ramifications for that. 3 major takeaways from the course. I wanted to say, one thing I started to realize as we were going through this class is that a lot of issues in education are really interconnected. And I really realized that with our discussion boards when we were talking about different issues, when people would bring issues from their own districts to the table, and you see the responses to those issues, you really realize that a lot of solutions can be applied across the board, and good leadership is good leadership. And so if you are applying those skills, if you have a good administrator or good administration and they're able to apply those skills, you really are able to solve a lot of different issues across the board. Absenteeism, mental health, parental involvement, they all kind of influence each other, and they're interconnected and tied together. And so when you're an administrator, you have to take all of those different components into consideration when you're dealing with one issue. You are dealing with all of them, essentially, or a lot of them. Takeaway 2 is effective leadership. You have to focus on systems and individuals, but as a leader of the school, as an administrator, it's more important to focus on the system, and then you can micromanage or deal with individuals from there. You have to build sustainable systems within your school. You can't rely on short-term fixes all the time. And those systems will eventually benefit individuals. And then lastly, how leaders respond to situations. shapes their trust and their credibility, how they respond to issues like chronic absenteeism, how they respond to conflict or social media posts. We talked a lot about, okay, there's a fake bomb threat. How do you diffuse that situation? Things like that. You have to watch your tone. You have to make sure that you are clear. Emotion is held at bay. You're calm. And you're focused on conflict resolution. I could actually talk about this for much longer, and I've already exceeded my time by double. I'm sorry, Dr. Tihan. But to close out this video, I wanted to say that I realized while taking this class that politics, law, policy are really big hitters for my administration and how they're able to make decisions and why they make the decisions that they do. I'm really grateful as a teacher that I was able to take this class because it opened my eyes and allowed me to kind of understand at a deeper level why educational decisions are made or why educational leadership have to go about things the way that they do. I think this course strengthened my confidence as an educator. It also gave me a lot of knowledge in making my own decisions in the classroom. So even though I'm not going into administration, I think I'm going to be able to take the concepts and apply them to my own classroom. So Dr. Tihan, I thank you for this semester. I've learned so much from this class. And even though I don't want to be an administrator, I'm really grateful for the content that you shared. So thank you.